Imagine receiving an invitation, not because someone wants you there, not because they care, but because they want to watch you squirm. That was what Robert Alvarez did to Lisa Martinez. He sent that invitation with a smile on his face and cruelty in his heart. He wanted her to see everything she lost when he left her. He wanted her to feel small. Lisa had once been his wife. Back then, she was struggling, unemployed, trying to rebuild herself piece by piece. Robert didn't wait. He walked away when she needed him most, leaving her with nothing but divorce papers and broken promises. To him, she was a failure, a chapter he was glad to close. So when Robert got his big promotion at the firm, when the champagne started flowing and the gold balloons went up, he thought of the perfect way to celebrate. He would invite Lisa to the party. Not to honor her, not to make peace, but to humiliate her in front of everyone who mattered. He imagined her walking in, shabby and defeated, while he stood tall in his designer suit, surrounded by power and success. The thought made him grin. But life has a strange way of rewriting the script, because on that night, when the elevator doors opened and she stepped into that high-rise office, Lisa Martinez didn't look defeated. She looked like royalty. She wore a breathtaking black and gold brocade suit with dramatic cape sleeves that flowed behind her like liquid power. Her hair was styled in an elegant crown of twists. Gold statement earrings caught the light. A belt cinched her waist with authority. She carried a leather portfolio in one hand, and clipped to her lapel was a badge Robert couldn't quite see yet. Her expression was calm, composed, and unshakable. She didn't flinch, she didn't hesitate. She walked through that party like she owned the place. And the truth, she was about to. What happened next, nobody in that room could have imagined. Not Robert, not his colleagues, not even the people who thought they knew how power worked. Before we begin, if you think people like Robert deserve to get away with treating others like trash, keep scrolling. But if you believe arrogance and cruelty should have consequences, hit that subscribe button. Like this video if you're tired of watching toxic people climb to the top while good people suffer. And drop a comment telling us, have you ever worked for someone like Robert? Let's expose this behavior together. Don't let people like him win in silence. Robert Alvarez stood at the center of the office like a king surveying his kingdom. The promotion had been announced that morning, and by noon, his desk was buried under congratulatory emails. Senior manager, corner office, direct report to the executive board. Everything he had clawed and schemed for over the past decade was finally his. He loosened his silk tie just enough to look relaxed but not unprofessional, took a long sip of the expensive scotch someone had gifted him, and let the praise wash over him like warm rain. "You deserve this, Robert," Marcus from accounting said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Nobody works harder than you." Robert smiled. He didn't work harder, he worked smarter. He knew whose back to stab, whose idea to steal, whose mistakes to quietly report to upper management. That was how you climbed the ladder in this business. And now, looking around at the men and women who congratulated him, he felt nothing but superiority. They were followers. He was a leader. "Speech! Speech!" someone called from across the room. Robert raised his glass. "I'd like to thank everyone who believed in me," he began, his voice smooth and rehearsed. "This company rewards excellence, and I'm honored to continue proving why I belong at the top." The room erupted in applause. Robert let it linger, soaking in every second. Then he leaned toward his assistant, Diane, and whispered, "Make sure the caterers are ready by 6. I want this party to be unforgettable." Diane nodded, scribbling notes. "And the guest list?" "Everyone who matters," Robert said, "and one person who doesn't." As the afternoon wore on and preparations for the evening party began, Robert found himself surrounded by a small group of colleagues who hung on his every word. They laughed at his jokes, agreed with his opinions, and asked him for career advice as if he were some kind of corporate prophet. It was intoxicating. But there was one story Robert wanted to tell, one piece of his past he couldn't resist bringing up. It always made him look good. It always made him look like the victim who had risen above. "You know," Robert said, swirling the amber liquid in his glass, "I wasn't always this successful." The group leaned in, eager for the tale. "Years ago, I was married to a woman named Lisa. Sweet girl, simple, but she had no ambition, no drive. While I was working 60-hour weeks climbing my way up, she was at home doing, well, nothing really. She didn't work? Someone asked. She couldn't hold a job, Robert lied smoothly, always complaining about how hard things were, how stressed she felt. I supported her for years, paid for everything, gave her every opportunity to figure her life out. But she just stayed stuck. He shook his head as if the memory pained him. Eventually, I realized I couldn't carry dead weight if I wanted to reach my potential. So I left. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. The group nodded sympathetically. Poor Robert, they seemed to think. What a burden that must have been. Where is she now? Marcus asked. Robert's smile turned wicked. That's the best part. She's coming to the party tonight. The group exchanged confused glances. I sent her an invitation, Robert explained, clearly enjoying himself. A little reminder of what happens when you choose mediocrity over excellence. I want her to see this office, this success, these people. I want her to know exactly what she gave up when she refused to grow. Someone laughed nervously. That's bold. That's honesty, Robert corrected. She needs to see what the real world looks like when you actually try. He raised his glass. To second chances, for those of us smart enough to take them. The lie tasted sweet on his tongue. The truth, the one he would never admit, was that Lisa had been the one supporting him in the early years. She had worked 2 jobs to pay the rent while he finished his MBA. She had believed in him when no one else did. But when she lost her job during a company-wide layoff and fell into a depression, Robert saw weakness, and weakness in his mind was unforgivable. So he left her with nothing but a cold signature on divorce papers and a note that said, "I need a partner, not a project." That was 5 years ago, and Robert had never looked back. By 6 o'clock, the office had transformed into something out of a luxury magazine. Gold and white balloons floated near the ceiling, their ribbons drifting lazily in the air-conditioned breeze. Soft jazz played from hidden speakers, mingling with the hum of conversation. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glittering city below, a perfect backdrop for Robert's moment of triumph. Robert stood near the center of the room, his chest puffed out, his grin wide and unshakable. He moved through the crowd like a celebrity, shaking hands, accepting compliments, posing for photos that would no doubt end up on the company's social media pages. He was untouchable, invincible. The entire evening was a testament to his greatness, and he wanted everyone to see it. "This is incredible, Robert," someone said. "Only the best," he replied. He checked his watch. 6:15. Lisa should be arriving any minute now. He imagined her stepping off the elevator in some sad, outdated dress, her hair a mess, her eyes avoiding contact with anyone important. She would shuffle through the crowd, uncomfortable and out of place, and Robert would swoop in with a patronizing smile and a comment like, "So glad you could make it, Lisa. Love what you've done with your look." The humiliation would be subtle but devastating, and everyone would see that Robert Alvarez didn't just win in business, he won in life. He positioned himself near the elevator, champagne glass in hand, waiting. Then, at exactly 6:20, the elevator chimed. The doors slid open, and the room seemed to hold its breath. The woman who stepped out was not the broken, defeated version of Lisa that Robert had conjured in his mind. She was a vision. Her black and gold brocade suit fit her like armor designed by a master craftsman. The intricate patterns shimmered under the lights, elegant and bold. The cape sleeves flowed behind her with every step, creating a dramatic silhouette that commanded attention. Her hair was styled in an elaborate crown of twists, regal and intentional. Gold statement earrings framed her face, catching the light with every subtle movement of her head. A thick belt cinched her waist, accentuating her powerful presence. In one hand, she carried a sleek leather portfolio. Clipped to her lapel was a badge, though from where Robert stood, he couldn't make out the details. But it wasn't just the clothes. It was the way she wore them. Lisa moved through the entrance with the kind of confidence that didn't need to announce itself. Her posture was impeccable. Her expression was calm, composed, almost serene. She didn't look around nervously. She didn't search for familiar faces. She simply walked forward, as if the entire room had been waiting for her arrival. And maybe it had. Conversations faltered, heads turned. People nudged each other, whispering, "Who is that?" Robert felt something cold twist in his stomach. This wasn't supposed to happen. This wasn't the script. He set his champagne glass down on the nearest table and moved toward her, his smile forced, his mind racing. He needed to regain control. He needed to remind her and everyone else who held the power here. "Lisa," he called out, his voice loud enough to cut through the murmurs. "You made it!" She turned toward him, her expression unreadable. Up close, he could see the flawless makeup, the subtle shimmer on her eyelids, the deep red of her lipstick. She looked like she had stepped out of a boardroom in Milan or Paris, not the sad little apartment he had left her in years ago. "Robert," she said simply. Her voice was steady, neither warm nor cold, just present. "Wow," Robert said, forcing a laugh. "Look at you, all dressed up. Where did you rent that outfit? Some costume shop downtown?" He glanced around, expecting a few chuckles from the crowd. A couple of people smiled awkwardly, but no one laughed. Lisa didn't flinch. She didn't blush. She didn't look away. "It's custom," she said calmly. "Designed specifically for tonight." Robert blinked. Custom? For a woman who couldn't afford rent 5 years ago? He searched her face for signs of embarrassment, for the crack in her armor, but found none. Instead, she looked at him the way someone might look at a stranger on the street, mildly curious but ultimately unimportant. "Well," Robert said, his smile faltering, "it's nice, a bit much for an office party, don't you think? I mean, we're not at the Met Gala here." He laughed again, louder this time, trying to fill the silence. Lisa tilted her head slightly, as if considering his words. Then, with the faintest hint of a smile, she said, "I dressed appropriately for the occasion, Robert. Perhaps you're just not used to seeing power up close." The words landed like a slap. Robert's jaw tightened. A few people nearby shifted uncomfortably. Someone coughed. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Robert opened his mouth to respond, to say something cutting and clever that would put her back in her place. But before he could speak, a voice called out from across the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please." It was the chairman of the board. Robert's momentary panic faded as quickly as it had come. Of course, the chairman was about to give a speech, probably about Robert's promotion, about his leadership, about his future with the company. This was perfect timing. Robert would let the chairman speak, bask in the praise, and then he would take the microphone himself. He would give his own toast, and in that toast, he would make sure everyone understood exactly who Lisa Martinez was, a cautionary tale about what happened when you lacked ambition. He stepped back from Lisa, his confidence returning. "Excuse me," he said coolly, "duty calls." He walked toward the front of the room where the chairman stood, a microphone in hand, his expression serious but warm. The chairman was an older man, silver-haired and distinguished, the kind of person whose presence commanded respect without effort. He smiled at the gathered crowd. "Thank you all for being here tonight. As many of you know, we've had some exciting developments at the firm recently, and I wanted to take a moment to address them." Robert straightened his tie, ready for his moment. But the chairman continued. "Before we get to that, I want to invite our guest of honor to join me up here." Guest of honor? Robert's heart swelled. He started to move forward, but the chairman wasn't looking at him. He was looking past him, looking at Lisa. "Ms. Martinez, would you please join me?" The room went silent. Robert froze. He turned slowly, his mind refusing to process what he was hearing. Lisa, who had been standing calmly near the entrance, began walking toward the front. Her cape sleeves swayed with each step. Her heels clicked against the polished floor. She moved with the kind of grace that came from absolute certainty, the kind of walk that said, "I belong here." Robert's mouth went dry. The chairman extended his hand as Lisa reached him, and she shook it, firmly, The gesture was professional, respectful, equal. Robert felt something inside him crack. "Ladies and gentlemen," the chairman began, "I'd like to officially introduce someone very important to the future of this company." No, 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 no. Over the past several months, our board has been in negotiations with a tech firm that has revolutionized data security in enterprise solutions, a company built from the ground up by a visionary leader who saw gaps in the market that others ignored. Tonight, I'm honored to announce that this company has acquired a controlling interest in our firm. The crowd murmured, confused but intrigued. And more importantly, the chairman continued, "I'm thrilled to introduce our new Chief Information Officer and majority stakeholder, Miss Lisa Martinez." The words hit Robert like a freight train. The room erupted in polite applause, but Robert couldn't hear it. His ears were ringing. His vision narrowed. Chief Information Officer, majority stakeholder, Lisa, his Lisa, the woman he had left broken and jobless, the woman he had invited here to humiliate. She wasn't a guest, she was his boss. Robert's legs felt weak. He grabbed the edge of a nearby table to steady himself. Around him, colleagues who had been laughing at his jokes minutes ago were now applauding Lisa. Marcus, Diane, the sycophants who had hung on his every word. They were clapping for her. Lisa stepped up to the microphone. She didn't look at Robert. She looked at the room, at the people, at her new company. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman," she said, her voice clear and strong. "I'm excited to begin this new chapter. This firm has tremendous potential, but it's also been hampered by outdated practices and, frankly, toxic leadership in certain departments." Robert felt the blood drain from his face. "Over the past few weeks," Lisa continued, "I've been conducting a thorough review of operations. I wanted to understand the culture here, the people, the values. And I have to say, what I found was both inspiring and deeply concerning." She paused, letting the words settle. "There are many talented individuals in this company who deserve recognition and support, but there are also those who have built their careers on cruelty, on taking credit for others' work, on creating environments where fear and ego reign over collaboration and respect." Robert couldn't move. He couldn't breathe. She was talking about him. Everyone knew she was talking about him. Lisa's eyes finally found his. They were calm, steady, and completely unforgiving. "Those days are over." The room was so quiet, Robert could hear his own heartbeat. "Now," Lisa said, her tone shifting to something lighter but no less authoritative, "I know change can be difficult, but I believe in this company. I believe in the people who truly care about doing good work, and I'm here to make sure that's exactly what we do." The applause that followed was genuine this time, enthusiastic. People who had been holding their breath seemed to exhale all at once. Robert saw it in their faces. Relief, hope, maybe a little bit of vindication. How many of them had suffered under his leadership? How many had watched him tear others down to build himself up? As the crowd began to disperse into smaller conversations, as champagne glasses clinked and people congratulated Lisa, Robert stood frozen. He wanted to run. He wanted to disappear, but his feet wouldn't move. Then Lisa turned to him. "Robert," she said, her voice low enough that only he could hear, "I'd like to speak with you in your office, or should I say, my office." She didn't wait for a response. She simply walked toward the corner office, the one with Robert's name on the door, the one he had been so proud of just hours ago. Robert followed, his legs moving on autopilot, his mind a chaotic mass of disbelief and dread. Inside the office, Lisa closed the door behind them. The sounds of the party faded, replaced by a heavy, suffocating silence. She set her leather portfolio on the desk, his desk, and turned to face him. "Sit," she said. "Lisa, Sit." Robert sat. His own chair felt foreign beneath him. Lisa remained standing. She opened the portfolio and pulled out a folder, thick with documents. "I want you to understand something, Robert. This isn't personal revenge, though I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a part of me that enjoys this moment." She placed the folder on the desk in front of him. "This is a formal termination notice, for cause." Robert's hands trembled as he opened the folder. Inside were printed emails, reports, complaints. His name appeared on every page. Harassment complaints from junior staff members, reports of stolen project ideas, documentation of him berating an intern until she cried, evidence of expense account fraud. It was all there, a paper trail of his sins. "How did you—" "I've been here," Lisa said simply, "for 3 weeks, undercover, sitting in meetings, talking to your colleagues, reviewing files. I needed to know if the reports I'd heard about your department were accurate, and they were. You've created a toxic environment, Robert. You've hurt people. And tonight, at this party, you invited me here to mock me in front of everyone. That was the final piece of evidence I needed." Robert's throat tightened. "Lisa, please, I made a mistake. I can change. I can—" "You don't get to change here," Lisa interrupted, her voice firm but not cruel. "You get to leave. And maybe, in whatever job you find next, you'll remember this moment. You'll remember that cruelty has consequences, that the people you step on while climbing the ladder are the same people who can pull it out from under you." She picked up the office phone and pressed a button. "Security, please come to the corner office on the 40th floor." Robert's world was collapsing. Everything he had worked for, everything he had schemed and lied and manipulated to achieve was gone, and the woman he had tried to destroy was the one holding the match. 2 security guards appeared at the door moments later. "Mr. Alvarez will be leaving the building," Lisa said. "Please escort him out and ensure he returns his access credentials." Robert stood on shaking legs. He looked at Lisa one last time, searching for something. Mercy, maybe, or at least recognition of the man he used to be. But all he saw was a woman who had risen from the ashes of the life he'd left her in. A woman who had built an empire while he'd been playing king in a crumbling castle. "Goodbye, Robert," Lisa said. The guards led him out of the office, through the party where his former colleagues now avoided his gaze, and into the elevator. As the doors closed, Robert caught one last glimpse of the celebration. Lisa was standing at the center of the room now, surrounded by people who actually respected her. She was shaking hands, smiling, beginning her first meeting as the leader they had needed all along. The elevator descended, and with each floor, Robert felt smaller. By the time he reached the ground level, he was nothing. Just another man who had confused power with worth. Just another cautionary tale. Back in the office, Lisa addressed the remaining staff. "I know tonight has been unexpected," she said, her voice warm but clear. "But I want you to know that real leadership isn't about fear or control. It's about respect, collaboration, and accountability. Starting Monday, we're implementing new policies to ensure this workplace reflects those values." The room listened, hopeful. "And to anyone who's been hurt or diminished by the old culture," Lisa said, "I see you. I hear you, and things are going to be different now." She raised her glass. "To new beginnings." The room raised their glasses in return. "To new beginnings." And as the party continued, as people began to relax and talk and hope again, Lisa allowed herself a small, private smile. She had survived the worst Robert could do to her. She had rebuilt herself from nothing. And now, standing in the office that should have been hers from the start, she finally felt like she had come home. Not because of revenge, but because she had proven something far more important than Robert would ever understand. That dignity, resilience, and actual talent would always triumph over cruelty and empty ambition. The story of the man who invited his ex-wife to mock her had ended. The story of the woman who became the boss had just begun. If you think Robert was right to mock and abandon Lisa when she was struggling, you can leave now. But if you believe karma is real and bullies deserve what's coming to them, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell so you never miss a story where justice wins. Like this video if you're celebrating Lisa's victory with us, and comment below. Who in your life needs to see this story? Tag them, share this, because the Roberts of the world need to know their days are numbered. Don't stay silent. Take a stand.